Hello, good morning, and welcome to Morning Brew on Politics Social. It is Monday the 23rd. Monday the 22nd. Nearly your birthday, Mum. It was Monday the 22nd of July, 2024, and Joe Biden's just dropped out of the presidential race. The news came through at about 7 o'clock last night. Thank you, Mum. I'm in Liverpool this week. Hello, everyone. Big shout out to everyone in the chat. We've got Billy in there. We've got Bandy for Harp Jays. We've got Orion Does Things in the chat. We've got Anatoly. We've got Scott in there as well. Duke Vengeance, Benjamin, Leslie. We've got Hayton Hot Puds. We've also got Alan Jackson and Sfax reporting from Ukraine. Good to see everyone. I hope you're all feeling good. Anyway, so as predicted, after that absolutely appalling debate with Trump a few weeks ago now, Joe Biden has finally dropped out. Something that I feel like he should have done a lot earlier, because this does throw the Democrat campaign into a little bit of disarray if the Democrat Party doesn't all back Kamala Harris, which has got to be the only solution now, because they've taken over $100 million in donations, and for that ticket, and if she's not on the ticket, or at least one of them's not on the ticket, then those donations have to be paid back to their donors, and then they're going to donate them again. Anyway, since the announcement, there's been a surge of donations to the Democrat Party. People are feeling a lot more positive now about the campaign. Someone else said, and I don't want to take credit for this, but I think it's true, with Biden, the Democrats had no chance of beating Trump. But with someone else, they've got half a chance. So it's not great, but I'll take it. I think it was Leslie at the beginning of the chat said, "Oh, you've got what you want now." And I responded and said, "Look, this isn't what I wanted. I don't feel that Joe Biden should have gone into this election at all. I think it should have been all set up from the get-go of having somebody else fulfill his second term." And don't forget, when he was elected in 2020, people were saying at the time he will be a one-term president. He was the transitional president to hand the baton down to the next generation. Of course, that didn't happen. But it is going to happen now. It's been forced. But also, I don't know if any of you watched the TV show Veep, which is Armando Iannucci's American version of The Thick of It. But this exact same thing happens in Veep. She's the vice president, that's what Veep is. The president decides not to stand for a second term, and then she runs for president. True story. Armando Iannucci, he's got a crystal ball, I tell you, crystal balls. Anatoly, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. The Democrats have just changed the name. Do you think Kamala can win? Like I say, oh look, this animation's just stopped. That's like in Star Wars where he stopped the laser blast. Can we do that again? Can we work this time? There we go. Is this plugged in? Thank you very much for the super chat. I do think she can win. I think they would have had a much better chance had they run a candidate from the start who could go up against Trump. I think she's got a better chance of beating Trump than Biden did. However, there are several issues. She hasn't made a name for herself in the last few years. She's been barely there. Like, I've seen hardly any news stories about Kamala Harris doing anything. She's also a woman of colour. She's also a woman, which isn't going to go down well with some more traditional Democrats. Now, don't forget, until the 1980s, there were Southern Democrats in America, and these Southern Democrats were as right-wing, if not more right-wing, than the lunatic MAGA fringe that you're seeing of the Republican Party at the moment. These are the people who wanted to suppress civil rights. These are the people who wanted women to not be able to have an abortion. These are the people who wanted the Bible in every school, the Ten Commandments on every wall, and all that nonsense that the Republicans want now. They wanted it then. And it was Lyndon Johnson in the 1960s who really stood up against these Southern Democrats. Because don't forget, it was the Republicans under Abraham Lincoln, who fought the Civil War against slavery. I mean, obviously, everyone in the North fought it, but I mean, in terms of the party that pushed for the end of slavery was, in fact, the Republican Party. It wasn't the Democrat Party. And it wasn't until really the 1980s when these Southern Democrats switched, probably 1984, switched to Ronald Reagan, not the voters, I mean. And since then, it's been, Democrats have been moderately progressive. I mean, look, American politics, the Overton window in America is so far to the right, it's ridiculous. The Democrats are the conservative party of America, and the Republicans are refuck. They're the wingnuts. They're the Suella Bravemans and the Kemi Badenochs and all that lot, and Boris Johnsons. So they're the very far right of the Tory party, all going into refuck territory. And so there still is a little bit of that attitude in some of the Midwest states, okay? And look, it wouldn't be an issue so much if the American electoral system wasn't as absolutely effed up as it is, because you've got a country of over 330 million people, and it comes down to a handful of votes from six states, and it's first past the post. I mean, it is first past the post in all these states. They don't have a second runoff after they get rid of the third party, which is going to be Kennedy, who's obviously running as Robert Kennedy Jr., who's running as a spoiler candidate to try and take votes off the Democrats. So, look, I don't think it's going to be easy. It's not going to be a cakewalk. I am not going to be able to unclench my arse until at least January the 20th next year, if the Democrats win. So it's going to be, the next few months are going to be a little bit of a roller coaster, I fear. One of the things that Kamala could do that would really help her campaign is just pick a really good running mate. And people are talking about Pete Buttigieg. Buttigieg? Buttigieg. I think that's how you pronounce it. And I think he would make a great... I think he'll make a great wingman. But, again, he's a minority. He's a gay man. He's a happily married father with children. I don't know if America's ready for that yet, or at least I think America is. I mean, you go to California, they wouldn't care. You went to Florida. You went down to the Key West. They wouldn't care down there. They wouldn't care in New York. But it's those 6 states that you've got to win: Pennsylvania, Ohio, Arizona. They've got to be won, and so it might be sensible for her to take someone on the ticket who isn't a minority or a woman. But we'll have to wait and see. The options are quite good, actually. There's some really good people in there that I think would be a really good running mate for Kamala. And just as her, in terms of her personality, what we need is someone who can take on Trump, someone to be the anti-Trump. And she is in a lot of ways. She was an attorney general. She prosecuted sex offenders. Trump is a sex offender. She was responsible for taking down big banks, and Trump is owned by the big banks. I know I'm repeating some words that we used in the campaign for Kamala 4 years ago, which is now going back around the internet. But it's true. And so she sets herself up as the anti-Trump and talks about what, really, really just absolutely throttles him, destroys him, obliterates him on the policies he hasn't got, because all he has is this, what is it, the butthurt nonsense of the Nepo babies whinging, because that's what it is. That's what the Republican Party has become. It's the Nepo babies whinging party. And if she can pull him up on that, brilliant. Because why I kept on saying for the last couple of weeks, since the debate, since I got up in the middle of the night to that watch party for the debate, that was an absolute disaster. The one bit above all the others that got me, that was like, like off the charts kind of frustration, was the moment when Trump accused the Democrats of allowing doctors to murder babies. And that's the point where you've got to just go, what are you on, you crazy, old, disgusting rapist, adjudicated rapist. And he didn't. Biden didn't. And that was the moment where I was like, he's not going to win this. And let me just say now, I think he was a great president. I think he is a really good president. And he got a lot of stuff done that no one thought would get done. He stood with strikers on the picket line, which no president has ever done before. He brought in the Green New Deal, although they called it the Infrastructure Management Act or whatever they called it. He managed to get the funding through to Ukraine despite the the Republicans dragging their heels on it. So I think he did really well under the circumstances. But his age is really showing. People go, oh, it's not about, you hate him because he's old. I'm like, first of all, I don't hate him. Massively respect him. Secondly, age isn't the problem. I'm happy to watch any documentaries with David Attenborough, and he's a good 15 years older than 13 years older than Biden. No, it's 15. God, 16. 16 years older, isn't he? Because Biden's 81 and Attenborough's 97, I think. And Attenborough's still all there. He can make a speech. He can, kick ass when he wants to. It's not about the age. It's about the ability to beat Trump, because that's all that matters. As Uncle Phil often says, it's about results. What's the result of this? What's the result of X going to be? And if that result isn't a good one, then stop doing that thing. So, for instance, we can look at Just Stop Oil and whether they actually achieved any of their objectives, which was to stop oil. No. In fact, arguably people use more oil and people turned against the environmental movement because of them. Really bad fail there, if you're looking in terms of actual results. The last leader of the opposition but one. Now, he really played to his base, but it wasn't enough. What were the results? 2 lost general elections, a lost referendum, 3 lost local elections in which Labour lost councillors, and a lost EU election in 2019. I mean, so many losses. What were the results? And then getting beaten by Boris Johnson. 80-seat majority for the Tories in a time when the Tories should have lost. They should have lost heavily for their mismanagement of everything, but in particular Brexit. Ivan, thank you very much for the super chat, mate. Sorry for coming so late. I was doing a little bit of a monologue, channeling my inner James O'Brien, which sounds a bit wrong. I'm going to move that to there so it's not covering my face. I don't want it covering my face. Go away. Do you have to be a US citizen to donate to the Democrats, or can other citizens donate too? If they can, I really want to donate, but I looked at and only had dollars as an option. Ivan, I get emails every day off the Biden Harris team, or whatever they're going to call themselves now, asking me for money. So I don't know. I think there is a cap on foreign donations. There must be. But what there isn't a cap on in America, they have a cap on personal donations from America. Oh, frozen. Oh, sorry about that. Let me cough for a minute. Sorry. Sorry about that. I froze. My cough hasn't got any better. I was up a lot last night, so if I'm a little bit not as on the ball as I usually aren't, as I'm usually not, it's because I'm a little bit sleep deprived and can't shake it. I've been to the doctors, got antibiotics. Yes, I'm doing everything. All of your home cures, I am doing them. I am taking them. Believe me. But yeah, it's a nasty cough that I just can't get rid of. But yeah, go back to Ivan's question. There is a cap on American citizens giving money to candidates, but not on American corporations, and that's why Elon Musk is perfectly legally allowed to give $45 million a month to the Trump campaign. Another whiny nepo baby. When they call the era of the interwar years and the post-war consensus and the Cold War and the post-Cold, the sort of define eras. I think that this, from sort of 2015 onwards, has just been the era of the whiny nepo babies. People who can never have enough. People who can never be happy. No matter how much money they have, whether it's Elon Musk or Trump or J.K. Rowling, they can never, ever, ever be happy. Because they are, she's not a nepo baby, talking about J.K. Rowling. She made her money off her own back, and I give her credit for that. But in the last few years, oh my God, she's destroyed her legacy entirely, which we've talked about on this channel a million times. But that's probably the most heartbreaking one, because Elon Musk was always a knob. Trump was always a knob. Like, there was no time in the history of anything where either of them were decent human beings. But yeah, the era of the whiny nepo baby. That's what I'm going to call it. Katrina, thank you very much. Katrina Tam there with the £5 super chat. Good morning, Graham. My sister bought me your book for my birthday. I'm enjoying it. Just started reading it. Oh, thank you, Katrina. Oh, brilliant. Well, thank you, Katrina's sister, and a happy birthday to you. So thank you very much for that. Johnny Copperhead, do you think Joe would have pulled the trigger if they weren't confident that enough Dems would line up behind Harris? It's a really good question, Johnny. Thank you for the super chat. I think you're absolutely right. I think that they had those conversations and said, okay, Biden said, if I step down, we have to swing behind Harris, because we can't be going into the convention in a few weeks' time in August, arguing amongst ourselves of who should be on the ticket. That won't do. So it remains to be seen, because obviously these delegates who will be going to the convention and the unions and things like that have already decided that it's a Biden-Harris ticket. But, look at it this way. Say Biden had a medical emergency and had to drop out. Would they instantly say, well, we have to get someone else then? I don't think they would. And in a way, because, like I say, it wasn't about his age, it was about his capacity to take on Trump. But a lot of that was to do with, increasingly, he was having what we will call senior moments, and which anyone can have. Look, I have them. I couldn't remember the name of someone or other last week, which was just ridiculous. But it's always difficult when you're doing a live show, especially when it's just like the powers of recall just sometimes fail you. Like when you're doing a quiz and there's not a really obvious answer that it's just on the tip of your mind, yeah. And then you remember what it is just as you give your question paper in. It's a bit like that sometimes. But yeah, anyone can have them. But the fact that he had so many over the course of the last 4 weeks, all compiled together, was an absolute disaster. So if we look at it in terms of saying it's his mental health that has meant that he can't actually perform the duty of running against Trump, then why is that any different from if he had an accident or heaven forbid, he passed away? I don't see it as, this is what happens. The vice president on the ticket steps up and says, right, okay, I'm going to run for president now. Not that it's ever happened before, I don't think, or not happened in modern times. I'll move down the super chats. Thank you very much for them. Oh, got quite a few, actually. Johnny back again with £2. Thank you very much. Harris Sanders, because all of the USA loves Bernie. I'm going to disagree. I'm going to politely dissent on that one. I like Bernie Sanders. I think he is a brilliant, brilliant statesman, debater, campaigner. I love his energy. Again, it's not about his age. He's older than Biden, but he's got the force of personality that is required to go up against Trump. However, he's been an independent for years. He's not necessarily a Democrat. He also... while progressives in America think he's absolutely wonderful, the middling, liberal, conservative leaning lot in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, in Arizona, etc., the six swing states, the 6 states that decide the election, might not be as enamored with him. And this is something that we talked about with Keir Starmer. How can he win this election? Well, he needs to get Tory voters to vote Conservative. And afterwards, people looked at the stats and went, oh, only 10% of Tory voters switched to Labour. And I'm like, that's all you need. That is all you need. But he needed it, otherwise he wouldn't win. You can't win by preaching to the choir. I can't emphasise this enough. You've got to get people from the other side to say, first of all, think that you're not so scary. I mean, Trump's politics and politics of Nigel Farage, it's all based on fear, isn't it? It's all like, oh my God, don't let these people in because they'll ruin your life. They'll steal your firstborn and they'll do that, and it's all about fear. Oh, the migrants are coming over and the trans women are trying to use your toilets and all this. It's all based on fear. And it does well amongst the base, but in the long term, there's no appetite for it because people generally don't want to be scared into voting. They want to think, okay, can I vote for this that I feel positive about? Or at least I'm not scared if they win. So in what Labour did very, very well in this election is they made it so that even the Conservative voters or the VFUC voters who would never vote for Labour, would never come across, were not so terrified of the prospect of a Labour win that they would actually actively get turnout and vote for the Conservatives in order to get them in. And we saw that the low turnout. That was a lot of Conservative voters who just didn't bother turning up. The number of people who voted for refuck because they kind of knew that they wouldn't actually win, but they wanted to vote and they wanted to vote for someone nasty and right wing. Fair enough, but they weren't scared enough to vote for the Conservatives. And it's a bit like that in America. We want a candidate for vice president and Kamala Harris to be able to project professionalism and decorum and decent arguments so that even though the MAGA right are never going to go for it, they're still going to riot and do whatever they do. But the vast majority of Republican voters will go, okay, I can live with this. They're not going to be marching up to the Capitol to try and take it over again. Katrina, thank you very much for the £20 super chat. That's very kind. To remind me that I've missed 5 super chats. I think I've done them all. It's all right. They called it the Inflation Reduction Act, the IRA for short, which is a bit confusing for us Brits. Thanks very much, Katrina. Yes, that was the Green New Deal. They changed the name to get the Republicans and to not block it, to filibuster it to death, and they did that to stop the 2 Democrats that held the vote in the Senate to not vote against it. Joe Manchin being one of them. Joe Manchin. Tim Minchin. Johnny, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Bernie is enormously popular in the red states. Rural people in those states are naturally fiscally liberal. If socially conservative, they love Bernie. Yeah. I agree, Johnny. Hang on. Let me just drink my tea. Oh, my God. So fun being ill. Johnny, yes, I agree. I absolutely agree that he is popular in the red states, but that's not what they need to win. They're not going to win the red states. They're not going to win any votes from the actual colleges in those states whatsoever. So it's like looking at it like laser beam focus on those 6 states, and it's why Gretchen. Oh God. See, this is what happens when I haven't had enough sleep. The governor of Michigan would probably be a very good person to have on the ticket because she's very popular in Michigan. Someone tells me what her full name is in the chat. I'll be very helpful. Very helpful, very happy. It would be very helpful, and I would be very happy. Optizap says the thing is, the gay website got loads of hits in the Republican conference. Maybe that's got something to do with African countries outlawing gays. I don't think it's to do with African countries outlawing, but we know that Grindr actually collapsed during the Republican National Convention. It went offline because so many people were setting up accounts with no photo for casual hookups at the Republican National Convention. Funny that. Plum Duff, when world peace is threatened, what a terrible time to have Trump as a candidate. Indeed, Plum Duff, I wish he wasn't a candidate. Shred Herring is here with some good news for me. Graham, look into the 100-day cough. Thanks, mate. I had it for over 4 months. Antibiotics do nothing. Need inhalers. Before it finally went, it was a massive pain in the rump. I've actually got my partner's inhaler. She's had asthma for a few years now, and I do have it to hand if necessary, but I've not had to use it yet. But we'll see. Plum Duff, when world peace is threatened. Oh, I've read that one. Thought processing, US, little different from the UK. It is possible for the Dems to win by focusing on their own base. US is a little different from the UK. It's possible for the Dems to win by focusing on their own base. That's true. So when I'm talking about not scaring Republicans, I don't mean the MAGA lot. I mean, like I say, they're too far gone. I mean, like they're not scaring the swing voters. I know it seems mad that there are. There's no, there's Americans who haven't made up their mind about Trump yet. I mean, seriously, really. I mean, come on. But at the same time, there are people who would have been tempted to vote for Trump for various reasons, who consider themselves, economically liberal, like Johnny Copperhead just said. They need a decent candidate on the left to vote for, in the Democrats to try and get them on board. So it's those floating voters, it's those independent voters that are important to get them on board, because they make all the difference. But you're right in a way, yeah. One of the big things that the Democrats need to do now is just get their base out, get people voting. One of the other reasons that the Tories lost so badly in the election at the beginning of the month. Oh my God, it was only the beginning of this month. It feels like a year ago. One of the reasons why they lost so badly was because their lot didn't turn out to vote, or at least if they did turn out to vote, they didn't vote for the Conservatives. And so it's very important for the Democrats to have people on the ground getting those votes out in states like Georgia, getting the black vote out in those states in order to win them. And don't forget, in the last election, Georgia was only won by 11,870 votes. That's a tiny percentage of the nation of America. Yay, Gretchen Whitmer. I knew it began with W. Gretchen Whitmer, that's the one. Ivan, another super chat. Thank you very much, Ivan. Ivan's being very generous this morning. Another big problem in the American political system is that speakers are partisan, unlike in the UK. The same with the judiciary in the US is partisan, unlike the UK. Yeah. So much for the separation of powers, eh? We can criticise a lot of the things that we do in the UK Parliament. If I'd been feeling a bit better last week, I would have done more about the sort of the state of the union. Jesus, the opening of Parliament. We did a watch party, didn't we? But I do feel like some of the things that we do work. They possibly shouldn't, but they do. And it puts in important checks and balances against, say, the Tories going nuts and doing crazy things. And one of them is the fact that we don't vote for our leader, essentially. We don't vote directly for the Prime Minister. Obviously, they have to be an MP. Generally speaking, they could be a lord. Generally speaking, they have to be an MP, so they have to be elected by their constituents. But aside from that, who becomes the Prime Minister is generally up to the party that's in charge at the time. There's no, you've got to see out the end of your term, which you have in other countries. So, for instance, if halfway through the term of, Donald Trump's first term in office, only term in office, fingers crossed, if he had, for instance, said, if it had been the British system, then the Republicans might have been like, oh, he's not going to win this election. Let's get rid of him. Let's get another president put in place. But they can't do that. The system is you stay in place for 4 years. Whereas in the UK system, we can get rid of prime ministers without an election, without an election campaign. We can just get rid of them. We did it with Maggie Thatcher. We did it with... Cameron resigned, but they got rid of Theresa May. They got rid of Boris Johnson without an election. They got rid of Truss without an election. The only leader of the Conservatives who's been ousted by an election since 1997 has been Rishi Sunak. Ousted from office. Some things in the UK actually work better than they do in the US. And I often think about how the US presidential system, which I think is abominably top-heavy. For instance, the president's cabinet, or equivalent of, are just people that are selected by the president. They just pick whoever they want. They just appoint them, the political appointees. Whereas at least the cabinet in the UK needs to be made up of majority MPs who have been actually elected, so we can get rid of them if they do a terrible job, theoretically. Recalled. Got a recall petition put in, take them out, or they can be brought from the House of Lords, which on one level I'm like not happy with, but on another level, if it brings in expertise like Mr. Timpson, who's come in to look at prison reform, then okay, that seems like a half decent way of doing it, as long as everyone agrees. It feels a little bit more democratic, that the majority of the people in cabinet, someone has voted for that person to be their MP. Whereas in America, everyone around the president is just appointed by the president. And the president has so much power. And this is why when Americans ask, like, why are you so bothered? Why do you always go on about the American election? Why are you always talking about American politics? It's like, because it affects the world. It affects the UK, it affects Europe, it affects Africa, it affects South America, Latin America, the Caribbean, Southeast Asia, Australia, Oceania. It affects everyone in the world. Because the US president just has so much power, because they're not just the head of government, like our Prime Minister, they're also the head of the state, like the king, So they're a king Prime Minister, and it's so hard to get rid of them. And now the Supreme Court has done what has happened in a lot of countries that have this super powerful executive, and they've said that he is immune from prosecution from any crimes he may commit while in office. I mean, come on. And this is the kind of corruption that we've seen in countries that have adopted the American model around the world. And now it's happening in America. I don't think that the American political system is particularly good. It doesn't allow for third parties. It does have a first past the post system when it comes to the presidential election, which is nuts. Like, they should have a runoff or alternative vote where, you vote first for dickhead bloody spoiler candidate Kennedy, and then you vote second for Kamala or whoever. They don't have that system. And so I feel like it's it's got some elements of the British system that we disagree with. And then it sort of makes it a lot worse, because you've got one man, and so far it's always been a man, might not be this time next year, but we'll have to wait and see. But you've got one man who's head of state, head of government, head of the military. Don't forget, the president is the commander-in-chief of the military. The Prime Minister isn't the commander-in-chief of the military in the UK. Technically speaking, if a Prime Minister went mad and said to the army, right, I want you to go and shoot all these Just Stop Oil protesters, they can legally say no. Not because it's immoral, but because they take their orders from the king. And so if the king doesn't sign off on it, they're like, they're not going to do this. And the king's very unlikely to sign off on a bill that says it's okay to shoot innocent civilians for being a nuisance. Also, the president is head of the Justice Department, DOJ. He's also in charge of the FBI, also in charge of CIA, Homeland Security, the freaking Coast Guard, NASA. I mean, there's so many departments in America, the Environmental Protection Agency. And it all goes up to the executive, to one person who can make decisions and put forward executive actions to make things happen and mess things up for people at a whim. And then there's the veto power that one man has. Okay, so in Parliament, you need to get X many politicians, MPs, to vote for your bill to get it through. In America, first of all, it's got to go through the House of Representatives, which is, nominally representative of the American country, of America. It's got 438 representatives. And and proportionate to the state. So a state like Wyoming has a fewer representatives, whereas California has more. However, it then goes to the Senate. The Senate has 100 seats. 2 senators for every state. There's 50 states. So somewhere like Wyoming, which has a population of around 500,000, gets 2 senators. California, which has a population of 40 million, gets 2 senators. You're right. That doesn't seem very fair. But then it goes to the president to sign. So if you have a Democrat-led House of Representatives, you can have a Democrat-led Senate as well. But if you've got a Republican president, he can veto it. And there's also a thing called a pocket veto, which isn't that you say that you're going to overrule it, but you just put it in your pocket until the end of the legislative session, and so it doesn't go through. They have to start again from scratch, pretty much, in the next session of Congress. So you can see how, like, having that much power with one man is why so few things get done in America. Like, there's so many things domestically that need doing that just don't get done. And it's infuriating. I mean, you're watching from abroad, it's infuriating. I can't imagine what it's like to be an American and see things like, there's never anything done on gun control. Medicare and Obamacare is a lot better than it was, but it's still not great. The infrastructure improvements that Biden managed to get through are a miracle, considering how difficult it is to get through. But here's the thing. You find time and time again, throughout history, especially since the Second World War, that American presidents have been very, very eager to get involved in foreign conflicts and to mess around with foreign elections. Why? They're in charge of the CIA and they're in charge of the military. And that the American president since the 1940s has had the right to invade a country with the full force of the American military, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, bomb the crap out of somewhere for 6 weeks without the permission of Congress, without the permission of anyone but the president, which is too much power in the hands of one man. And if that man is the living embodiment of the 7 deadly sins, like Trump is, that's what's terrifying about it. So when people say to you, if you're watching this from Finland or Ukraine or from the UK, what are you got to do with American politics? Why are you talking about American politics? You go, this is why. This is why. Because I don't want you cowboys giving this kind of power to mess things up for the rest of us. As much as I love America, Americans, I guess. I don't want to see them suffer. But at the end of the day, if they were just hurting themselves, I'd be a little less concerned. I know that sounds really harsh, but there's lots of countries around the world where people vote for terrible dictators to take over. And you're kind of just sitting there going, okay, this is bad and would like to try and help the situation. But at the end of the day, it's not affecting me personally. It's not like, oh, shit, because that terrible person who's in charge of Burkina Faso right now, I'm a bit worried about whether I'm going to live to see next year. Whereas Trump is like the sword of Damocles hanging over us all. So I do hope that Kamala gets a good running mate. I hope that the Democrat Party, what's really important right now is that they all get behind Kamala. I know some of them have got reservations about her. Maybe I've got a few reservations myself, but we can't have infighting going into this, the Democrat National Congress convention. Conflab, whatever it stands for. We can't have that. Anyway, so I've got Orion does things, thank you very much. Feels like I've aged 10 years this month. So much has happened. Yeah, Orion, I totally get that. It's been a crazy month. I can't believe it's been a month. Sir Larry the Cat, a little bit earlier with the super chat, thank you. Biden stepped down, so the position does not automatically go to Harris. Look it up or ask someone who knows how US politics works. No, Sir Larry, I know it doesn't. That's why I'm saying that the Democrats need to rally behind Harris so that she becomes the nominee. Like, the nominee isn't chosen till the convention, which is next month. I'm saying we can't have infighting leading up to and at the convention because that's going to be terrible. So that's why I'm saying people have to get behind Harris. It's not a done deal. It's not like Trump. It's not like Biden can hand all this over to Harris willy-nilly. Can't do that. I know. I get it. I do have a degree in politics, you know. Johnny Copperhead. Thank you very much for the £5 super chat, mate. I thought if Biden stepped down as president, Harris would be the 47th president, and all that money spent on Dumph 47 merch is wasted. Well, I was thinking about this as well. Thanks for the super chat. First of all, the 47 isn't the number of the president. It's actually the IQ of the person wearing one of those hats. Got to remember that. But secondly, there's going to be loads of merch, which is anti-Biden stuff, like loads of material content that they've made, which is anti-Biden stuff that they're all going to have to chuck now, which is funny. I think it's funny. It amuses me. Ivan, thank you very much for the super chat. Victoria Atkins and Kemi Badenoch behaved appallingly on Friday in the House of Commons. You're absolutely right. They both got up to the opposition dispatch box when they had no right to, when Steve Reed from the government was speaking. Yeah. And Kemi Badenoch's, the way that she talked to Angela Rayner, if you haven't seen this clip, it's unbelievable. She's so condescending, so arrogant, so smug. And you're just like, oh, this is the way that the private school mafia, and Kemi Badenoch's part of the private school mafia, she went to a private school in Nigeria. This is the way they would speak to all of us if they had the chance. You know, if they thought they could get away with it. She was so patronising. And it was a disgusting thing to watch. And I really shudder to think if she becomes the next leader of the Conservative Party. Because, I mean, she's not going to win any votes for them. They're just going to descend, spiral down into the mire. Fair enough. But if the Tories ever want to win again, I don't think they're going to win in 5 years. I don't think they're going to win. They might win in 10 years' time, maybe 9-10 years' time, if they go back to the centre ground. But by the looks of things, they're doing exactly what they did in 1997, which was just fall apart, basically, and end up bickering amongst themselves about who should be leader. And then getting 3 successive leaders, William Hague, Ian Duncan Donuts, and Michael something of the night, to be leaders. Michael Howard, which was weird. Was it Michael Howard? There was something of the night about. And it wasn't until they got Cameron, it was all like, hug a hoodie and all this kind of nonsense. God, if he tried to hug me, I'd have words. Yeah, they saw that they had to go back to the centre in order to win. Same with Labour. They went very much to the left in the years 2015 to 2019, and then they realised, nope, we need to go back to the centre ground because it's the only way to win an election. Our class is raising its head. Yeah, Leanne Scott, it absolutely is. Captain Bart Roberts, Miss Harris is very smart, articulate, and experienced ex-district attorney who's prosecuted men like Trumple filth skin. She will skin him in the debate. That's what I'm hoping for, Captain Bart Roberts. Fingers crossed. I'm going to read a couple of more messages before I go. James O'Brien's not in today. It's Emily Thornberry on LBC, if you want to flick over there after this. And then tomorrow, it's going to be Suella Braverman. I don't know if I'm going to listen to it. I don't want to add to the listening figures. I don't think we should share any moments from it unless someone calls in and just, gets her bang to rights. We'll see. Johnny, thank you very much. Thank you for that super chat. Condescending, arrogant and smug Tory, basically. You're not wrong, mate. You're not wrong. Maureen says, I'm camping later this week. Oh, cool. Hope it doesn't rain. Christopher says, listen to what Badenoch says. She basically criticised her prime ministers for giving her briefs that they refused to support her on. It was Johnson and Sunak screwing me over. Yeah. The whines of the Nepo babies. We should do it as like an album. Like just Nepo baby whining bullshit. Lucy Willis, love Thornberry. I really like Emily Thornberry. I think she's fantastic. And I'm a bit disappointed that she's not part of the new Labour cabinet. Larry said, yes, you did. Sorry, I'm having an argument with a cat here. Sorry, Larry. Thank you for the super chat, though. He says you are only clearing it up now, Graham. Now, if you are as democratic as you claim, then open debate and let Harris earn it. Yes. I do think that she does have to, look, I think that she has to earn it, right? I know it's not given to her, but what I'm saying is that the people who were asking Biden to stand aside, I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that some of them have already come out for Harris, that they will get behind Harris. Because I don't want to see everyone fighting going up to the convention. I think that would be the worst possible thing, and it could well hand Trump the victory. And look, we're not in a great place. I'm really pissed off at the Democrats right now for putting us all in this situation. I think they should have had this wrapped up years ago. They should have had a plan in place. They should have said to Biden, look, mate, don't run the next election. We'll get behind someone who's going to be, absolutely brilliant to go against Trump. I think maybe they were relying on Trump being in jail or being impeached, or these scrotus not giving him absolute immunity to anything, any crime he finds pleasurable. I don't know. I just think that Veep wasn't actually a comedy show. It was actually a documentary. Lucy says, went to Leeds Pride yesterday. Leeds Mayor on stage got me thinking about Clacton Pride next year. Jesus. Yeah. Pride in Liverpool isn't till, I think it's the end of the month, actually. I won't be here, I don't think. But Burden's wife had a word. Burden? I get that, okay. Nick says Emily Thornby's probably a bit too pro-EU, pro-SM for the current Labour cabinet. She's never been shy about calling out the disaster of Brexit. Yeah, Stella Creasy also, never been shy about that. I'm hopeful, though. I'm hopeful that we are going to be making strides to the point where we can rejoin the EU. I just wish it was sooner rather than later, and it breaks my heart, as I've often said on this channel, that our rights were taken from us. Our rights to go and live and work anywhere in our continent were taken from us. Imagine if you lived in Liverpool and one day you were told you weren't allowed to take a job in Manchester without paying a shitload of money for a permit to work there, and having to ask the mayor of the government of Manchester, the local government, permission, and they go through all of your background, and then they make a decision whether you are worthy enough to come and work in Manchester. Well, that's what's happened on a bigger scale, because we're no longer allowed to work in Paris or in Berlin or in Madrid or in Athens without asking someone's permission. I can't get presenting gigs around Europe anymore like I used to. Travel stuff, which is I enjoy a lot more than politics stuff, sorry to say. Politics can be quite depressing at times, whereas I find travel quite uplifting. I don't think I'm ever going to get past that. And I don't think, to bring class back into it, I don't think I'm ever going to get past the fact that the people who told the working class to vote for Brexit were all rich, comfortable, nepo baby, privately educated, living in a goddamn castle. Yes, Cummings has a castle because he married a woman who owns a castle. A castle. Going, oh, look at the metropolitan elite who wants to stay part of the EU. Knowing damn well that each and every one of them, their kids, would still be able to live and work in Europe. Farage's kids, because he's got German passports. Tommy 10 Names has got an Irish passport somehow. The rest of them maybe don't have an Irish passport, don't have an EU passport. It's fine. They can afford to pay the money that you need to get the work permit, get the visa, to have money in your bank account, to get residencia in Spain. The rest of us, we don't. Those rights have been taken from 93% of the population. But the 7% that told you to vote for Brexit, they still have those rights. And I think that is beyond disgusting and absolutely reprehensible and indefensible. And if you ever get into a chat with someone who's still defending Brexit, I'd like you to point that out to them. Anyway, right. Yeah, like I say, I'm in Liverpool this week looking after me dad. You all right, Dad? He's on the other end of the room here. Nick's saying, yeah, when discussing Labour's current hard Brexit stance, no SM, no FOM. They need to remember life's happening right now. Most people can't afford to waste 10 to 15 plus years for the politics. I know. Yeah, I completely get that. I completely get that. But part of the King's speech, part of what Labour intend to do this year is bringing us back, not into the single market, but back into Europe in a way that means that we're paving the way to return to the EU one day. It's not going to happen in this Parliament. It can't happen in this Parliament. No matter how, if it's as simple as this. If Keir Starmer, desperately wanted to get us back into the EU, and he put that forward in the manifesto, and they won, great, we're going back into the EU would reject our application, because being part of the EU needs to be a settled matter. And that's not going to happen until all those conservative Brexit voters realise Brexit was a mistake and want to come back. We need at least 2/3 of the population to be saying, yes, Brexit was a mistake, we need to go back into the EU. Until that happens, they won't let us back. And so we can want to rejoin things as much as we like, but it isn't going to happen, unfortunately. But on the positive side, I just read a news report this morning that 1 in 6 Tory voters will be unalived. Well, not unalived. They will be unalive by the next election. 1 in 6. Wow. Anyway, listen, I've got to go. Imagine heating a castle and they're like, well, he's got the money to do it, hasn't he? Nepo babies. Whinging Nepo babies. Hate them all. Don't forget to click like, everyone, says Maureen. I echo that. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to be doing a show tonight at 8 o'clock called Stateside, which I've been doing for the last couple of weeks. I'm going to be joined by Mikey Famine from the Bin podcast, one of Wayne's mates. He lives in Chicago, and he'll have a very interesting take, I'm sure, on what's happening over in America. So we'll hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak, rather than me trying to distillate what's happening thousands of miles away in someone else's country to you, which is probably a bit fairer on the Americans. So yeah, please join us for that. If you can't, Phil will be back in the morning at 9:30, so for the next morning brew. So you're very welcome to join us for that too. So until then, I'll say thank you so much for watching, and until next time, give us a like on the way out, as always, and I'll say hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.